She left the Luna trials to save a dying wolf. By sunrise, the Alpha King had found her. The moon hung low over the silver-tipped forests of Lunaria, spilling soft light across the world like liquid frost. In the heart of the woods, the ancient stone arena of the Luna trials stood, its walls etched with the stories of warriors who had come and gone, each leaving behind whispers of courage, glory, and sometimes tragedy. Tonight the arena glimmered under the lunar glow, awaiting its newest contender. Era tightened her cloak and stepped onto the cold stone floor, her heart thrumming in rhythm with the night. The wind carried a chill, but she did not shiver. Her mind was focused, her resolve unwavering. This night was the culmination of years of preparation, of endless training and silent determination. If she succeeded, she would earn her place among the chosen warriors of the Silver Wolves, a mark of honor few could ever claim. She glanced at the others, some moving with sharp precision, others with quiet confidence. But Era's eyes were drawn to the forest beyond the arena, where shadows moved like living things, whispering secrets only the brave or the foolish would heed. She felt a strange pull toward the darkness, an unease that made her heartbeat quicken. Yet she forced herself to focus. This was her trial, and she would not falter. The horn of the trial sounded, a deep, resonant note that echoed through the trees and shook the stones beneath her feet. The contestants surged forward and Era followed, her steps light but sure, every movement honed from countless days of practice. The first challenge was simple in theory. Navigate the forest of echoes and retrieve the moon shard hidden in its deepest glade. In practice, the forest had its own rules. Trees bent and twisted in impossible ways, shadows moved as if alive, and the wind whispered doubts that wormed into the mind like creeping vines. Era moved carefully, her senses alert. She could hear the distant footsteps of other challengers, the crack of branches under their weight, the murmur of voices testing their courage. And then she heard something else, a faint whimper, soft and broken, carried by the wind. She froze, straining her ears. It came again, a weak, pitiful sound. Not a human voice, but a cry that pricked at the edges of her heart. She turned toward it, stepping off the main path, deeper into the dark forest. The moonlight slanted through the branches, revealing a small shape huddled among the roots of an ancient oak. A wolf pup, no bigger than her forearm, lay trembling. Its fur was matted with blood, and its breathing was shallow. Each inhale, a struggle. Era's heart clenched. She had trained to survive, to fight, to endure the trials. Yet here was a creature more fragile than any challenge, pleading for mercy in silence. She knelt beside the pup, brushing her fingers through its fur. It flinched, but did not bite, trusting instinct more than fear. She whispered soft words, words of comfort and warmth. Even as the wind carried her voice back into the forest. "It's okay. You're safe now. I won't leave you." The pull of duty twisted within her. The trial waited. The moon shard, the mark of triumph, was still out there, waiting for her to claim it. If she failed, her chance to prove herself would vanish. Her fellow contestants would finish the trial, the judges would mark their names in gold, and she would be left behind, dishonored. But the pup's eyes, small and dark and shining like drops of midnight, held something she could not ignore. Life, vulnerability, trust. And in that instant, Era realized that no glory in the arena mattered as much as the life before her. She made her choice. Carrying the pup against her chest, she moved away from the trial path into the deeper shadows of the forest. Her movements were careful. Every snap of a branch, every rustle of leaves might alert others, or something far worse. The forest seemed to watch her, the shadows bending closer, testing her resolve, and yet, with each step, her certainty grew. She had chosen compassion over conquest, and even if the consequences were severe, she knew she could not turn back. Night deepened. Stars pricked the sky, faint and distant, as though the heavens themselves were holding their breath. Era found a shallow hollow beside a silver stream, its water glinting under the moonlight. She laid the pup down gently, examining its wounds. One paw was twisted, bleeding softly, and its side bore a mark that spoke of sharp teeth or claws, perhaps even a trap set by hunters or dark creatures. "I'll make you well," she whispered, tearing strips from her cloak to bind the wounds. Her hands moved with skill, practiced and gentle, though her heart thudded against her ribs with worry. As she worked, she felt a presence in the shadows, a subtle tension in the air that made the hairs on her neck stand. Not human, not fully, something ancient and aware, watching her with curiosity, and something darker, judgment, perhaps, or fascination. She did not look up, focusing instead on the pup, the warmth of her hands, the soft words she murmured, the care she poured into it. These small acts of mercy were defiance in themselves. And somewhere in the quiet the forest seemed to lean closer, holding its breath along with her. Hours passed like this. The pup stirred, weak but alive, and Era allowed herself a small sigh of relief. For a moment, she forgot the trial, the rules, the world outside this forest. For a moment there was only her and the small life she had vowed to protect. But the forest does not forgive mistakes easily. A distant rustle, sharper than the wind, made her freeze. Her ears, trained to every sound, picked up a pattern, rhythmic footsteps, purposeful, approaching, fast. Era's pulse quickened. Whoever, or whatever, was coming. They were not hunting small prey. They were hunting her. Her mind raced. She had left the trial. The consequences would be severe. The Alpha King, Kalen, would know soon enough. And Kalen, the name carried weight even among whispers. The Silver Wolves' ruler, feared and respected, bound by law, feared by all for his strength and ruthlessness. And yet, she had no choice but to face him if he found her. A crack of a branch closer to her, and the forest seemed to shiver. Golden eyes glinted through the trees, sharp and intelligent, not the eyes of a common warrior, but of one who commanded fear with every glance. And then she saw him, tall, broad, cloaked in shadows and silver, his presence undeniable. Kalen, the Alpha King, had found her. Era stood slowly, holding the pup close. She met his gaze. It was a gaze that could pierce stone, that weighed judgment with effortless authority. And yet, there was something else there too. Curiosity, perhaps, or interest. Something soft beneath the cold command, something that stirred unease in her chest. "You left the trial," Kalen said, his voice calm but cutting through the night like steel. "Why?" Era held her ground, though fear flared beneath her skin. "Because it was alive," she said simply. "It needed help. Glory means nothing if a life is lost for it." Kalen's eyes narrowed, assessing, calculating. "Compassion is admirable, but it is dangerous in the wrong hands." "Maybe," Era replied, her voice steady, "but I would rather risk danger than turn away from what is right." For a long moment, neither moved. The forest held its breath. The pup stirred, sensing the tension, and whimpered softly. Kalen's gaze flicked to it, then back to Era. "You have courage," he said finally, a note of approval threading his tone, though his expression remained unreadable. "But courage alone does not absolve you from the consequences. You will face the council tomorrow, and I will decide your fate." Era's heart sank, but she did not falter. She had known the risks. "I accept it," she said. "But I will not regret saving this life." Kalen studied her in silence, the golden light of the moon reflecting in his eyes like molten gold. And then, without a word, he turned and melted back into the shadows, leaving Era trembling but determined. She knew he would return. He always did. The night stretched on, heavy and still. And Era stayed with the pup, tending its wounds until the first hints of dawn brushed the sky with pale light. And as the sun's fingers began to touch the treetops, a shadow moved at the edge of the clearing, silent, unyielding, inevitable. The Alpha King had returned, and this time there would be no escape. Era tightened her hold on the pup and drew in a deep breath. The Luna trials had tested her. Yes, but tonight she had chosen something far greater. Compassion. And she would face whatever came next with the same courage. The golden eyes glimmered closer. The first rays of the sun caught on steel and shadow, and Era realized this was only the beginning. The forest held its breath, and the story of the girl who saved a dying wolf had only just begun. The sun had barely risen over the silver-tipped trees of Lunaria when Ira felt the presence behind her before she saw it. The golden eyes she had glimpsed at dawn shimmered now, cutting through the morning mist. Kalen, the Alpha King, moved with the precision of a predator. Yet there was something restrained in his steps, a deliberate control that spoke of power tested over centuries. Era tightened her hold on the wolf pup, which stirred weakly against her chest. Its small body trembled, but she pressed her fingers gently to its fur, whispering, "Stay with me. Please, stay with me." Paelin stepped into the clearing, the sunlight catching his silver-trimmed cloak. His face was unreadable, a mask of authority, but the intensity of his gaze spoke louder than words. "You left the trial," he said, his voice steady, commanding. "You know the consequences." "I do," Era replied, her tone unwavering, though her heart pounded in her chest. "But I could not leave it to die. Not this one. Not anyone." Kalen's eyes narrowed slightly. Compassion is rare, too rare among warriors. He circled her slowly, like a hawk observing its prey, though his gaze lingered on the pup. "Do you understand what you've done? By leaving the trial, you defy the law of the Silver Wolves. You risk more than your honor. You risk your life. I risked it already, and I would risk it again to save a life." Kylan paused, studying her. There was a flicker in his golden eyes, something softer than judgment, something she could not name. Curiosity, perhaps, or admiration. "You are reckless," he said finally, his voice low, almost a whisper. "But perhaps there is strength in your recklessness." The forest seemed to lean closer, listening. The wind whispered through the silver leaves, carrying the faint scent of danger. Era knew that Kalen could decide her fate with a word, yet she did not flinch. She had chosen her path, and she would not step back now. "You will come with me," Kalen said abruptly. "The council will judge your actions, but until then, you are under my watch. Leave the pup behind, and perhaps I might be merciful." Ira's heart clenched, but she shook her head. "I will not leave it. Its life matters as much as mine. If you would have me answer for my actions, let it be with it by my side." Kaelin's jaw tightened. He had not expected defiance, at least not this calm, steady defiance. "Very well," he said, voice clipped. "But know this, your choice has consequences, and mercy is not guaranteed." For hours they moved through the forest. Era carried the pup, Kalen moving silently beside her, his presence both threatening and protective. The silence between them was thick, heavy with unspoken words, and yet each step drew them closer, not only in distance, but in understanding. Kalen's golden eyes never left her, observing her courage, her care, the fierce light of her heart. Era, in turn, felt an unfamiliar tension stir within her. Kalen was fearsome, yes, but there was something magnetic about him, an authority that did not crush, but commanded respect. And beneath it, she sensed a flicker of something else, a hint of vulnerability, as if the cold steel of his persona could be softened. As the sun climbed higher, they reached a clearing where the trees thinned, revealing a pool of silver water. Ira knelt, setting the pup gently on the soft moss. Its eyes were bright, but its body weak, trembling with effort. "We need to find a healer," she said softly, examining the small wounds. "Someone who understands magic. Someone who can help it recover fully." Kalen watched her, his golden eyes reflecting the sunlight on the water. "Do you know the risks you take? This pup is no ordinary creature." Ira frowned. "It is just a wolf." Kalen shook his head slowly. "No, its blood carries something ancient, something tied to the moons themselves. This creature is special. Its survival may tip the balance of power in ways you cannot yet imagine." Ira's heart skipped. She had only wanted to save it. She had not thought of destiny or prophecy or balance of power. She had acted out of compassion alone. "Then we protect it," she said firmly. "Together, if we must." Kalen's lips curved just slightly in a gesture almost imperceptible. "Bold," he murmured. "And dangerous. I should seize it now and bring it to the council." But his gaze softened briefly, lingering on her determination. "Perhaps there is a lesson even I might learn from your choices." The forest seemed to shift then, shadows darkening in the corners of the clearing. A low growl echoed, and the pup's ears twitched. Ira tensed, glancing around. Dark shapes moved between the trees, shapes that were neither wolf nor man, but something older, twisted by shadow. Kalen's stance changed instantly. He moved in front of Ira and the pup, his hands brushing the hilt of a silver-edged dagger at his side. "Stay close," he ordered. "Do not show fear." Fear invites them. The shadows advanced, circling, testing, whispering threats in a language older than the forest itself. Ira felt her pulse quicken, but she held the pup tightly, her fingers digging into its fur. "We can face them," she said, more to herself than to Kalen. Kalen glanced at her, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "You may have courage, but courage alone does not protect you." Stand ready." The creatures struck suddenly, their forms blurring in the dappled sunlight. Kalen moved with deadly precision, deflecting attacks, his movements fluid and unyielding. Ira followed his lead, ducking, weaving, using her small size to her advantage, protecting the pup with everything she had. For a time it seemed as if the battle would never end, but Ira noticed something strange. The shadows recoiled from the pup, hesitating as if some unseen power protected it. Her heart leapt. Perhaps its blood truly carried ancient magic, something the darkness feared. Finally, the creatures retreated, melting into the forest like smoke. Kalen's chest rose and fell with measured breathing, but his golden eyes remained fixed on the pup. "It is more than a mere wolf," he said quietly. "I had suspected as much, but now I know. Its survival is tied to forces we do not yet understand." Ira knelt beside the pup again, checking its small body. It was weak, but alive, and she felt a surge of relief that chased away the fear that had gripped her heart. "Then we keep it safe," she said simply. "Whatever it takes." Kalen studied her, the weight of centuries in his gaze. "You are reckless," he said softly, almost tenderly. "And yet, I think I may trust your recklessness more than most would dare." There was something strange in them, a pull she did not understand, a hint that even the Alpha King, feared and untouchable, could be drawn into something fragile and beautiful. They continued through the forest, moving carefully, the pup between them. Kalen did not speak much, but his presence was constant, a reminder of authority and power that both protected and unnerved her. Ira, in turn, found herself stealing glances at him, wondering what lay behind the golden eyes that had seen centuries pass, yet now seemed almost curious. By mid-afternoon they reached a cliff overlooking a silver valley. The wind whipped through Ira's hair, carrying the scent of distant mountains and untamed rivers. The pup stirred, weak but alert, sensing safety in the presence of the Alpha and its savior. Kaelin watched the horizon, then finally spoke. "We must move carefully. The Council will not ignore your absence. And now, with the pup, they may act sooner than we expect. Then we prepare, we protect it, whatever comes." For a long moment they stood together, the pup between them, the wind tugging at their cloaks. A strange bond had formed, not of love yet, but of trust, fragile and new. And in that moment, both felt it, that this journey would change everything, that neither the law of the Silver Wolves nor the trials themselves would define their fate. But the forest had other plans. A shadow moved behind the trees, a presence older and darker than anything Era had yet encountered. It watched, patient and cruel, waiting for a moment of weakness. And as the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the valley in gold and crimson, Era sensed it, the feeling of being hunted, not for punishment, but for something far older, something that would not forgive easily. Kaelin's hand brushed against hers, a fleeting contact, just long enough for a spark to pass between them. Neither spoke, but the tension was palpable. A silent acknowledgement that their fates were now entwined. The pup whined softly, as if sensing what was coming, and Era pressed her fingers against its head. The shadow shifted again, closer now, almost daring them to turn and flee. And as the first stars appeared in the sky, Kaelin's voice cut through the evening air, low and dangerous. "They're coming." Era's breath caught. Her courage surged. She would protect the pup. She would face the darkness, and somehow she would survive. But deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. The Alpha King's pursuit, the Council's wrath, and the shadow that hunted them all would not be denied. And tonight, under the rising moon, their journey truly began. The night had swallowed the valley, leaving only the silvered glow of the moon to guide them. Era carried the pup carefully, its small body nestled against her chest, while Kaelin moved silently beside her, golden eyes scanning every shadow. The forest was no longer merely a place of trees and wind. It had become a labyrinth of dark magic and unseen threats. "They are close," Kaelin murmured, his voice low, almost a growl. The words carried weight, but also an unspoken warning. One misstep, and the darkness would consume them both. Era nodded, though her heart was pounding. She had faced fear before, but never like this. The forest seemed alive, whispering secrets of old battles, old curses, and the lives lost to power they could not control. The pup stirred, whimpering softly. Its eyes glimmered in the moonlight, reflecting something ancient, something that made Era shiver. "Kaelin," she said softly, "what is this thing in the forest? Why does it follow us?" He glanced at her, his golden eyes sharp and unreadable. "It is not merely the forest that hunts us," he said. "It is the shadows of those who have fallen before, the magic that lingers where life has been twisted. And your pup, it is tied to something far older than you or I." Era's hand went to the small wolf's head, stroking it gently. "Older than the Alpha King?" she asked, trying to imagine what could be older than a ruler who had seen kingdoms rise and fall. Kaelin's jaw tightened. "Older than any living ruler. The moons themselves, the ancient spirits bound to the balance of life and death. The pup carries a fragment of that power. And for that reason, it is hunted as much as it is protected." Era's breath caught. She had not known, had not thought, when she had chosen compassion over glory, that she would carry such a burden. Yet now she understood. Her choice had drawn her into a world of forces she could barely comprehend, forces that could shape kingdoms or destroy them. The forest shifted again, and Kaelin held up a hand. His gaze scanned the shadows, tracing movement that was almost imperceptible. "We cannot stay here," he said. "We must find the moon shrine. There, the pup will be safe, at least for a time. But the path is dangerous. Curses linger along the way, and creatures, not of this world, will test us. Ira nodded, steeling herself. Then let us move. I will protect it. Whatever comes, I will not let it fall. Kalen studied her for a moment, then inclined his head slightly. Your courage is unusual. And perhaps necessary. I will fight by your side, but do not mistake my presence for mercy. I am bound by law, as you are. And law is not always kind. The journey began in earnest. They moved through twisted valleys where the trees grew crooked and the soil was blackened, where the moonlight did not reach, and the wind carried whispers that sounded like voices from long ago. The pup stirred occasionally, its soft whines cutting through the eerie silence. Ira whispered to it constantly, soothing it, feeding it, small bits of dried meat she had carried for the trial. For hours, neither spoke more than necessary. Kalen's presence was steady, almost comforting, though it carried an edge that reminded Era constantly that he was a king, not a companion. She, in turn, found herself stealing glances at him, at the way he moved, at the set of his jaw, the intensity of his gaze, and she realized that something was shifting between them, fragile but undeniable. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the trees. Era froze, pressing herself against Kalen. The pup whimpered and lowered its small head. From the shadows, a figure emerged, tall, dark, and cloaked in magic that made the air shimmer. Its eyes glowed with a pale, eerie light, and its movements were unnaturally smooth, like it floated rather than walked. Kalen stepped forward, hand on the hilt of his dagger. "Stand behind me," he commanded. "This is no ordinary hunter." Ira obeyed, gripping the pup close. Fear and determination warred inside her, but she refused to show weakness. She had chosen this path, and she would see it through. The shadow moved closer, circling, watching, testing. Its voice was a whisper that cut through the forest, though its lips did not move. "The wolf carries what you do not understand. Leave it, or perish." Ira's heart raced. She took a step forward, lifting her chin. "I will not leave it. We are not afraid of shadows." Regellin's eyes flicked to her, and for the first time, she saw something in his expression that was not command or judgment, but respect. "Brave words," he said softly, his voice low. Then, with sudden movement, he lunged, striking the shadow with a slash of silver light. The creature hissed and recoiled, but it did not disappear. Era's instincts took over. She moved, small and swift, positioning herself to protect the pup, while Kalen fought with precise, lethal grace. Together they became a rhythm of movement, her compassion guiding her actions, his strength defending them both. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. The forest had no measure of time, only shadows and the moon. The shadow finally retreated, dissolving into mist, leaving behind a trail of dark energy that made the air shiver. Kalen lowered his dagger, breathing evenly, but his gaze remained sharp. "You have strength, Ira," he said, almost admiringly. "Not just courage, but a will that does not bend." Era's chest heaved, but she nodded. "We survive. That is all that matters." Kylene studied her silently for a long moment. Then he spoke, softer this time, almost quietly. "You have heart, perhaps more than any warrior I have ever known, and yet that heart places you in danger beyond what you realize." Ira's hand went to the pup, stroking it gently. "I cannot stop caring, even if it risks my life, even if it risks everything." Kaelin's golden eyes met hers, and in that look she saw something unspoken. Not love, not yet, but a pull, a tension that neither could ignore. The forest around them seemed to lean closer, as if aware of the fragile bond forming between warrior and king, between human and wolf, between courage and power. The night grew colder, and they finally reached the edge of the cursed valley. Beyond it lay a river of silver fire, shimmering and magical, and across it, the faint outline of an ancient shrine, bathed in pale moonlight. Era's heart leapt. "The Moon Shrine," she whispered. "We're close." "Yes." Palin nodded. "Close, yes, but the path is not safe. The shrine is protected by ancient magic, meant to guard the pup, but also to test those who would claim it." Era took a deep breath, clutching the pup. "Then we pass the test together." Kalen's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Do not mistake me for your companion. I am here because the law commands it, and because the pup's survival may be crucial. But your bravery, it is unsettlingly admirable." The words made her heart stir, a confusing warmth in the midst of fear and cold night air. She said nothing, only nodded, letting her focus remain on the shrine, on the pup, on the path forward. The river of silver fire stretched before them, flickering and alive with ancient power. They could not walk across it as ordinary travelers. Kalen extended his hand, and Era hesitated, then took it, her fingers brushing against his. A small spark ran through her, not magical, but real, a connection neither could deny. Step by step, Kalen guided them across, the silver fire reflecting their determined faces. The pup whimpered, but remained still, sensing the safety of the Alpha's presence. And when they reached the other side, the shrine rose before them, ancient stones etched with moonlight, protected by an aura of quiet power. Era set the pup down carefully. Its small eyes widened, and it padded forward, sniffing the sacred ground as if it recognized the magic that had drawn them here. Era knelt beside it, brushing a strand of hair from its head. "You're safe now," she whispered. Kalen watched silently, his golden eyes softening slightly, almost tender. But the moment of calm was shattered. A new sound, a low, haunting roar, echoed through the forest. From the trees, shadows began to converge, darker and more numerous than before, circling the shrine, whispering threats older than the moon itself. Kalen's hand went to his dagger. Era's pulse quickened, and the pup growled softly, small and fierce. The shadows were closing in. And as the first star of the night blinked in the sky, Era realized something terrifying and inevitable. This was only the beginning of what they would face. The shrine might protect them, but the shadows were patient, and their journey through moonlight, fire, and darkness was far from over. Colin's voice cut through the night, low and dangerous. "Hold fast, Era. The true trial begins now." And for the first time, Era felt it. Not fear, not hesitation, but a burning certainty. Whatever came next, she would face it. She would protect the pup. And, somehow, she would survive alongside the Alpha King who had found her by sunrise. The silver glow of the moon washed over the ancient moon shrine, bathing the stones in light that seemed both gentle and unforgiving. Era knelt beside the pup, her hands trembling as she checked its small body. Its eyes glimmered, reflecting the sacred light, and for the first time, they shone with something more, something alive and powerful. Kalen stood a few steps away, his golden eyes scanning the darkness beyond the shrine. The shadows had gathered in greater numbers now, circling like smoke and malice, their whispers twisting the air with curses long forgotten. He moved with quiet precision, his hands ready on his silver dagger, his posture both protective and commanding. Era could feel the weight of his presence, heavy with centuries of authority and the unspoken depth of someone who had ruled kingdoms, yet rarely trusted his own heart. "They will not wait," Kalen said softly, his voice carrying through the clearing. The longer we linger, the stronger they grow. The shrine will protect us only if we act together. Are you ready, Era? Era drew a deep breath. The pup nestled against her chest. She had faced fear before, but this was different. The shadows were alive with anger, with intent. They wanted the pup, and perhaps, in their dark logic, they wanted her too. Yet she did not falter. "I am ready," she said, voice steady despite the trembling of her hands. "I will not let them take it, whatever it takes." Kalen's eyes softened briefly, just enough for her to catch it, and then he nodded. "Then stand close. Trust your instincts, and trust me." Step by step they moved to the center of the shrine, where the moonlight pooled like liquid silver. Era placed the pup down carefully, and it padded forward, sensing the ancient magic that hummed beneath the stones. She knelt beside it, murmuring soft words of encouragement. And then, as if responding to her touch, the pup's small body began to glow faintly, a silver light that pulsed like the heartbeat of the forest itself. The shadows recoiled, hissing in anger, their forms twisting and distorting as the pup's light grew stronger. Era's eyes widened. "It's awakening," she whispered. She could feel the magic flowing, not just around the pup, but through her, through the air, through the shrine itself. Kalen's voice was low and urgent. "Focus your heart. Do not let fear rule you. The pup's power will respond to courage, to intent." Era closed her eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of her determination fill her. She imagined the pup safe, the shadows banished, the forest calm and pure. She whispered to the pup words of protection, of life, of light. And slowly the silver glow spread, enveloping the small creature in a sphere of shimmering energy. The shadows shrieked, advancing despite the light, but Kalen moved like a force of nature, silver dagger flashing, deflecting tendrils of darkness with every precise strike. He was tireless, a king in motion, yet she noticed something new, a reliance on her presence, a subtle rhythm between them, like two pieces of a whole moving together. Era rose, standing beside him, her own hands glowing faintly as the pup's magic flowed through her. "We fight together," she said, "not apart, not afraid." The shadows hissed in response, their forms stretching, trying to pierce the protective light. But Era and Kalen were no longer merely human and wolf. They were a shield of courage, determination, and bond. The pup stepped forward, its light blazing brighter, revealing the shapes of the shadows, twisted and broken, born from long-forgotten hatred and greed. And then it happened. The pup's light exploded outward in a wave that swept through the shrine, lifting the shadows off their feet and scattering them into the darkness. The forest trembled, the air crackling with energy. Era felt the power coursing through her veins, a connection not just to the pup, but to the moons themselves, to the magic that had guided her choice from the very beginning. Kalen's hand brushed against hers as they moved together, a fleeting touch that sent warmth through her. He looked at her, his golden eyes meeting hers with something unspoken, something that had grown through danger, trust, and shared courage. "You..." "Ah, remarkable," he said quietly, almost a whisper. Era's heart beat fast, but she did not reply immediately. Instead, she knelt beside the pup, calming its small body as it glimmered under the moonlight. "We are only as strong as we are together," she murmured. Kalen's gaze softened further, and he stepped closer. "Perhaps," he said, voice low, "I have underestimated the power of the heart." The shadows that remained tried one last assault, but the pup leapt forward, a flash of silver light expanding outward in a wave that shattered the darkness completely. The forest fell silent, the whispers of ancient curses fading into the night. The shrine glowed serene, a haven in the midst of the chaos. Era sank to her knees, breath coming in deep, shaky gasps. The pup curled against her chest, small and warm, its eyes reflecting the calm after the storm. Kaelin stood beside her, his hand resting lightly on the hilt of his dagger, though he no longer needed it. The threat had passed for now. The silence between them was heavy, yet not uncomfortable. It carried something unspoken, a bond forged in moonlight, fire, and shared trials. Kaelin looked at her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken.
"You saved more than a life tonight,"
he said softly. "You have reminded me of what I have long forgotten. Courage, compassion, hope." Era's chest tightened. She had not thought of herself as heroic. She had only acted because it was right. Yet hearing Kaelin's words, seeing the depth behind his golden eyes, she felt a warmth she had never known. "And you reminded me," she said quietly, "that strength is not only in the body or the blade, but in the heart." For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the silence filled with understanding, with something deeper than words could carry. The pup stirred, nuzzling against Era, and Kaelin's gaze softened further, almost imperceptibly. The night deepened, and the first full moon rose over the shrine, casting silver light over their faces. The shadows were gone, the forest calm, but Era knew that the world beyond the shrine still carried danger, challenges, and choices to be made. Yet in that moment, there was peace. Fragile but true. Kaelin extended his hand toward her, not as a king commanding a subject, but as someone who had shared danger, risk, and trust. "Come," he said softly. "The council will wait. But tonight?"
"We have earned a moment of calm." Era took his hand, her fingers brushing against his.
The warmth that passed between them was quiet, yet powerful. A bond forged not just through survival, but through understanding, courage, and shared destiny. "Then we face what comes next. Together," she said. They walked side by side, the pup between them, the moonlight guiding their path back to the forest. And though the trials, the council, and the shadows beyond would test them again, they knew one truth that night. Their courage, compassion, and bond had changed something fundamental, not only in the forest, not only in the world, but in themselves. The forest whispered in approval, the silver streams reflected the rising moon, and the shrine stood as a testament to the choices they had made. They had faced darkness, embraced fear, and emerged stronger, not only for themselves but for the life they had vowed to protect. Kaelin's golden eyes met Era's once more, a silent acknowledgement passing between them, stronger than words. "This is not the end," he said quietly. "No," Era replied, smiling faintly, her hand resting over the pup's glowing fur. "But it is a beginning, for all of us." The pup yipped softly, its silver light flickering with joy, as if it too understood the weight of the night's victories. And as the first stars blinked high above Lunaria, the trio moved forward together, warrior, king, and the small creature that had changed their world. The moon shone brighter, reflecting off the silvered leaves, and in its glow, Era felt something she had never felt before: hope, courage, and a love that did not need to be named yet, but existed fully in its quiet, powerful form. The journey had been perilous, the trials beyond imagining, but together they had survived. Together they had triumphed, and the forest, the moons, and the silvered winds seemed to whisper their approval, carrying their story forward into legend. For Era, Kaelin, and the pup, the night had ended, but the legend had only begun.